So Know My Menu also allows me to do like a compliance report for the chefs. And I can let them know what are they using that might be low-hanging fruit to swap out that might not trigger, or it wouldn't trigger the filters. So I had a chef in Utah. He was using a soy spray-on for his grill. And I said, Chef, if you change this to something else, it's not soy. Soy is an allergen. You wouldn't have to be inconvenienced by it when you're cooking. He was like, oh, it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. I did the research. I showed him, an alternative source. He made that change. And he was like, thank you, Susan. I had no idea. So that's the other benefit for chefs. They don't have to keep up with all of the things that might bother a guest. They don't have to dig into those ingredients when somebody comes in and says, I want to eat this, but does it have X in it?
Right.
And then they're kind of, they have to stop, they have to go. If it has a package, they have to look through the package to see
Right.
what's in it, and it's really inconvenient. So it's really that trade-off between, do you front load it when everybody's there and you know what I mean, and you've got this intention to load the system, or are you inconvenienced when the patron asks you at a later date?
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, founder and CEO of Know My Menu, Susan Abbott. My lady Susan, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am feeling unstoppable.
Yes, and I know you're unstoppable. This is somebody that I've had the privilege now of knowing maybe the past 4 months, right? But you've been on my radar. We've known each other since 2020?
Something like that, yeah.
And it was Corey Mintz.
Right.
Who's Corey Mintz?
Corey Mintz is the author of The Last Supper.
Yep.
And I used his book to really gain insight on the restaurant industry. And I felt like you had to get him on your show.
Yeah, and he was a great guest. I read his book. Is it The Next Supper? Not The Last
The
Supper.
Next Supper.
The Next Supper.
You're right.
Yeah. The Next Supper. Great book talking about the future of dining, from his perspective, the trends. And why do you care so much about the trends of the restaurant industry?
Well, having come from tech, somebody might wonder about that. I love tech and I love food. And I decided to go ahead and create this product called Know My Menu to bring together those two loves and to get more people dining out.
Yeah. Yep. So somebody who's been on my radar, somebody who I've gotten to know, somebody who's hosting me here in California. Thank you so much for your support of Restaurant Unstoppable, and somebody who I know is going to add value to our conversation today. So I can't wait to dive into who you are, what Know My Menu is all about. But let's get that motivational, inspirational, ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
So two, would you believe it?
Give it to me.
One is that it really just matters how I show up. And I've used that a lot in parenting my two boys. One cannot control how somebody else receives the information. You can't control anything really. So I can only manage myself. So it's about how I show up. That's really important to me. And then the second one is I avoid placing a value, judgment, or assessment on anything. So I don't say whether something's good or bad. And we're going to get into how I created Know My Menu, where I was diagnosed with a chronic illness. And I try not to think of that as a bad thing, especially how it's turned into Know My Menu. So,
yeah, there can be silver linings in everything.
That's right.
And one of the ways that you've really helped me over the past 4 months, you put the power of now on my radar. We've had these long conversations. I know we can have long, deep conversations because we've had them in the past. And as somebody who's been traveling around and, I'm alone a lot, I'm always thinking about the future.
Right.
I'm always worried about am I doing the right things? The power of now. And that's kind of your quotes kind of remind me of that.
Well, the right things, you just said it. Am I doing the right things?
Right.
So are you doing productive things? Because you don't know if they're going to be right or wrong.
Right, but being in the moment, showing up now,
moment.
and just taking the reality of what is just as it is. It's not good or bad.
That's
it just
right.
is.
It just
And
is.
it's up to me to make it the best that it can be.
That's right.
In this moment, now. Awesome way to get this thing started. So, what we already talked about today. Your main focus is Know My Menu.
Yes.
That is your portfolio today, right? And you also do consulting. Currently?
Yes. Well, actually, I want to go ahead and say my main focus is to love life.
Okay.
Right. So is to get the most out of life.
Yeah.
And I have been an IT consultant my entire career. I got started in the 1990s. Oh, there it is. I got started in the 1990s. I started out as a technical trainer. And so I would teach classes, then got into designing databases and systems. Then from there, I went on to become a global IT leader in my 20s at 3D Systems. So they're the founders of stereolithography.
Okay.
3D printing. And then I went back into consulting, and I have implemented many, many projects, ERPs, CRMs, websites. And then, gosh, is this where you want me to go into know my menu?
Well, yeah, just give us an idea of who we're talking about. What you're don't go too deep, but just an idea of how you got to where you are today. What makes you uniquely qualified to be doing the work you're doing today?
Well, I've done a lot in tech, hands-on in tech. So people will ask me what part of tech?
Yeah.
Because of when I got started, I've done just about everything. I've been a security administrator. I've been, like I said, a global IT leader for a publicly traded company. I've been a trainer. I've done database development. That's probably my sweet spot, is designing solutions. And so my idea with tech is that it's a tool by which we can enjoy life more. It's not a toy. So whatever you want to do, use tech to make that more viable for you.
Right.
Not to replace.
Yeah,
your
I'm
life.
listening to The Power of Progress right now. It's actually a book. You're going to be joining me on my trip down to San Diego. I'm going to make you listen to that with me. It's great. But he's talking about it's a history of technology over time and its influence on society and the how it shifts power, you know? And now he's talking about what the author, and his name escapes me, I apologize, but where he's going with that is this idea of technology is inevitable. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not. But the people at power are going to control how that technology, how they benefit from us, from it, the technology, and how it influences us. So it's this idea of making technology that serves humanity.
That's right.
Not just, but it's so hard to know what serves humanity and what's there to exploit humanity, right?
Well, okay, so if we go to what Dan Buettner talks about in the blue zones, blue zones are just the areas of the world that have,
90 plus or something
people
like that.
live a high quality of life for a very, really long time. And he talks about how it's food, physical activity, and community. And so if you use technology to allow you to enjoy more of life,
more community,
then I think it's a really wonderful thing. And that's how I got into it. So I had the pleasure of going to Yale when I was 16, and I was super excited. I had my little typewriter. I looked like Vicki Vale walking in there. And I was working on my coursework, and I looked down at the quad and I saw these other kids that were playing, and they all had computers. That was how I got into computers, is I saw firsthand the thing that they had that made them different, not the intellect, was the computer.
Yeah, the tool.
The tool.
Yeah.
And so I came home, I said, Mom, Dad, there's a thing, it's called a computer. We got to get one.
Yeah.
And that the rest was history. I took a class, and it was just natural for me to understand this world and then apply it to life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so you do this whole tech thing for
Yes.
the majority of your life, right?
Yes.
You're in tech,
20
right?
plus
20
25, 30 years, I think now.
What was going on in your life where you started to realize that there was a problem? Take us to the point where you have a challenge.
Oh, for Know My Menu?
Yeah. What was your unique challenge that sent you down this path?
So in 2011, I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. I'm married, and I hit a wall. And I got tired, and eyes got blurry, and I gained weight. And I go to the doctors, and I'm like, what's going on? They run some tests, and he literally said, congratulations, you have an autoimmune condition. And I'm just sitting there going, what? Who? Where? And that began this journey of realizing, the body that I had relied on for so much of what I do, birthing my babies and enjoying them, was now
enjoying life,
yeah. Was now needing some support. So I went down that journey.
What were they telling you needed to do?
Nothing. They told me nothing. And so I asked the doctor, this is when I was very new to all of this. I said, is there anything I can do about eating? is there anything I can change? He said, well, just eat a well-balanced diet.
And this is 2011.
2011, yeah. And then
what was your lifestyle like at this point in terms of what you would eat?
Good. It was really good. I didn't, again, no judgment on anybody that does. I wouldn't go to fast food, high quality foods. At that point, hadn't even gone out to eat in nearly 4 years because my boy's father worked out of town. And I wanted to always be there. So I was eating all from home, really good food, organic, all that good stuff. And that's what I try to tell people. I was like the picture of health. I was fit, vibrant, ate really good food, and this happened. Yeah. So
do you mind going into more detail in terms of like what this new diagnosis meant for you? Did they say that like you weren't going to be able to have the energy you would ever have again, or like?
So it's Hashimoto's, and so for people that are familiar with that, it affects it affects your thyroid, which for me it manifested in gaining some weight. And so then I remember telling the doctors, I'm gaining weight, but you're still on the scale of BMI, you're just curvaceous. Don't worry about it. And then it flipped. And I lost a lot of weight because it went hyper instead of hypo. And then they said, you're still healthy. So in like a course of 4 or 5 months, I fluctuated 25 pounds.
Dang.
That's a lot. And I didn't have control over it. And that was probably the hardest part for me. I couldn't figure out input, output. There was a point when I couldn't pick up my child, my baby.
Wow. Just because you're that tired?
No, so when it flipped, when it was hypo, I would be tired. That's when it's sluggish and not performing well. But then when it flipped, they call it a thyroid storm. It went to hyper, and my resting heart rate was 99.
Damn.
And my resting heart rate is, 50. So that was a huge, that was a lot of strain on the body. So to pick up a 2-year-old didn't work well for the heart. So we do that. At the same time, my marriage ended.
Do you think that?
So
I mean, do you think that this diagnosis came from the stress? Do you think that was contributing to?
I do. Well, so I had the Hashimoto's and adrenal issues. The hyper was, my adrenals were then out of whack. I do think that not nurturing myself, with baby being super mom. Yeah. I raised the boys. Their dad lived out of town. So I was a single mom from the time they were born. I think that just wore on the body, and it didn't have what it needed to nourish the rest of me. So I've become really good at self-care and, boundaries and just what I need and communicating what my needs are, to whether it be to my boys or to friends.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Okay, so you learn all this about yourself. You start making these different life choices. It isn't until 2022 that you launched Know My Menu?
Okay, so 2011, I'm diagnosed. Fast forward, ups and downs, trying to figure out a lot of stuff going on, close out the marriage. I got heavily back into my consulting. I had stopped working right before that. And I got back into consulting. I'm working a lot. Reversed the chronic illness through lifestyle.
How did you do that? Just the diet?
Diet, yeah.
So did you start researching like what I need to eat for like this autoimmune disease?
So I did, yeah. And I don't, yeah. And I consider it like a condition. I kind of have a hard time
Sorry.
with, yeah. A lot of times when people are dealing with a diagnosis, they identify with it. And
Right.
I always tell people, I'm like, I tried on being sick. It didn't look good. I sent it back. I didn't want to identify with it. And it's even hard now to kind of go back and think about those symptoms, like being so tired I couldn't take care of my kids and stuff. But
Yeah.
I needed to do something. And so I want to say I researched, but things just came my way. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm really guided. And, I got an email from a text message from a friend, and it was a website, and I read it and it resonated with me, and I changed things that very next day. And then that set me off on a journey to just feel more fabulous, right? Because my goal is to enjoy life. My tech goal and the way that I eat was to get the most out of life. So I go down that journey. I love going out to eat. I love being with community. And in 2019, I went out with a friend of mine in Vegas, and he said to me, "Gosh, Susan, you're such a pain in the to go out to eat with." And I was like, "What? I'm not a pain. I can always find something to eat." I would scour the menu, and I can cook, so I could create something if I didn't feel like there was anything delicious on the menu. It was really like I would be fine eating anything, but I would like to have something delicious too.
Yeah, but you were being intentional, thoughtful with what you were ordering, so you put a lot of thought into it.
Yes. And so I was there that weekend, September 2019. And he's giving me a hard time, and I'm driving back going, I'm not a pain. And then a couple weeks later, I was with my boys, and I'm like, do you guys want to go out to eat? And we don't go out to eat a whole lot, but I don't even know why I wanted to go out that day. And I paused and I said, no, I don't feel like interrogating the server.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to go out to eat because I don't feel like interrogating the server. And then I go, wait. And then my tech brain just started going off.
What if I didn't have to interrogate the server?
Yeah. What if I didn't have to? And what about all the other people? And, how many people just skip going out to eat? And what about the server? And what about the restaurant? And I started to just think about this. And in that moment, that's when I created Know My Menu. And then I spent time.
So your challenge was this fear of, not fear, but like this
effort.
Anxiety of not wanting to disrupt people or be an inconvenience or a nuisance on people.
That's right.
But at the same time, you
well, I didn't want to be Sally, right? Sally.
Yeah. So from your perspective, from listening to this from the restaurant perspective, there's in the mid 2010s, there's this evolution of food awareness and all this stuff happening, and more people realizing, and science evolving, realizing literally we are what we eat, and people start looking at food more as medicine than sustenance, right?
For pleasure.
Right. And we just started getting way more society. There's this shift happening where people are being much more conscious eaters. But we don't know what we're eating when we go out to eat because we don't know what's in that recipe. We don't.
That's right.
And what's going through your mind as I'm saying this?
Well, I love that you're using the word no.
All right.
I just love it because that's why I created the name is Know My Menu.
Right.
And that transparency and empowerment for the patron.
Right.
To go ahead and eat the way that they want to eat. So when I came up with the idea, it wasn't to lecture and tell people how they're supposed to eat. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to create a tool by which people can adhere to whatever their food choices are.
And no two people are the same.
That's right.
So what your food restrictions are might be different from somebody else. There's a million different things. What do you?
And I was going to say I may be different, right? I may be different if I'm eating a certain way because I, want to go ahead and get the most out of life, and then I'm going to treat myself.
Right.
And have something decadent.
So the pain points for you are not always knowing exactly what's in the menu, not wanting to be a nuisance on the restaurant and the server, wanting just to be able to go out and enjoy and know peace of mind.
And on anonymity too.
Right. And on the restaurant side, so a lot of the resistance is kind of a pain in the ass for restaurants when they get somebody,
Exactly.
Sorry, Susan, hate to break it to you, but you are a nuisance. From it doesn't have to be, it could be an opportunity to really go above and beyond and really blow the socks off your guests by caring about their dietary restrictions. But at the same time, there's a lot of energy and work that goes into training your staff to know the menu that well.
That's right.
Right. So it's a real pain point. And then, hey, I might be allergic to egg, right? Can I get this dish with no egg? You can, but that egg is a binding agent in the recipe. So if you order it, it might not be good. So that's the other, from like the restaurant, like the chef perspective, like this is a key ingredient.
I went to this really nice restaurant at the Miramar Hotel, Caruso's.
Right.
And I created a dish for me. I was like, okay, can I get ancient grains without the grains? Because at the time I wasn't doing any. Can I just get the vegetables?
Yeah.
And the server comes back and I said, can I get the vegetables on a bed of lettuce? And that's just how I liked my veggies, right? And so the server comes back and goes, the chef did not want to present them that way. And he brought it as like lettuce and then vegetables. And I respect that. And so that was the other thing I wanted to do with Know My Menu is give the chef an opportunity to inform. They could look at the Know My Menu solution, and then it can already have like what the chef wants to kind of create, because the chef is like a little artist.
So you get this idea that you would discover a pain point, and the process-oriented mind of Susan Abbott goes, there's a problem here, and I can figure out a solution. This is 2019. 2019
was when it was I said, wow, this is really cool. And I was so excited about it. I started to go back to my consulting roots.
Yeah.
I started to interview restaurants.
What kind of questions were you asking the restaurant when you were interviewing them?
Getting into what it was like for them to deal with, the high maintenance, guest. Yeah. The Susan Abbott, the high maintenance guest.
What were you learning?
I was learning all kinds of great things, just the attention to people that have allergies. And I was like, whoa, that's impressive. How serious these restaurants take that. I was learning about the frustration and the pain points for the servers to learn everything and to know what's in it. I had the scariest story about a server that asked the kitchen what a person had an olive oil allergy, asked the kitchen, okay, do we use olive oil for our chips? No, we don't. Then she said, she let the patron know it's okay, we don't use it. The patron's eating away. Then somebody tells her, oh no, we do. She ran out to go tell the guest. The guest looks at her, and while looking at the patron, grabs the EpiPen and stabs herself in the leg. And that is that's real. And so that's what I'm trying to support and avoid, that trauma for the servers.
Yeah.
But I heard all kinds of stuff.
And for the guests.
And for the guests. Yeah, exactly.
And for the owner. Like, did I just kill somebody?
And the person ended up having to go, to the ER.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So think about that.
That's crazy. It's a real problem. And honestly, if I was having this conversation like 10 years ago, I'd be like, it's not the responsibility of the restaurant to make sure that the guest isn't trying to kill themselves.
Right.
Right. Like, if you're going out to eat, do the due diligence, but at the same time, there's
that's on one end of the extreme, right?
Right.
The kill yourself part, right?
Right.
On the other end of the extreme would be the person that just doesn't feel well if they eat a certain ingredient, right? Or they're just wanting to be really healthy and mindful because they've got something coming up where they need to have all of, their brain and their energy going, or they could be into fitness, right? So it runs the gamut. Some people have no tolerance. Some people have a little more tolerance, but they just may not feel well if something's in it.
Yeah. I think as I mature, as I learn more, and, I think there is a level of service that an obligation of the restaurant to serve the guest in that moment of what's in this, we can help you with at least that, Right. There's a level of communication and knowing your menu if you're making the menu, so you can steer people in the right direction. And as we get into the future, there's only more and more people that have food restrictions as we learn more about the body and how it processes food and how food can be medicine. And also I think more and more people are sick today than ever before because of the food that we were eating in the past.
That's right. The standard American diet.
It's a all-encompassing collective issue that we all have to deal with.
Exactly. Another thing that I wanted to do with Know My Menu was to bring some anonymity to the process. So I was dating when I was dealing with, my food choices. And the last thing I wanted to do was be out on a date and then go, excuse me, what's in that? And
Right.
what's in this? And what's in that? And and then the person across the table from me is like, oh yeah, I'm out, Or like if I was out in a business lunch, I didn't want to disclose. I mean, somebody with IBS doesn't want to be, I can't have that because I have IBS. You don't want to announce that.
I mean, I would totally announce.
I know you would. You would. Believe me, you would. So some anonymity. And then you've also got, I live in Southern California, so you can be a little more high maintenance here.
Yeah.
And the people are less judgmental, going back to that.
It's more normalized.
Exactly. It's more normalized. But I kind of envisioned a person making choices to eat a certain way, and they're out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
They're out where maybe it's not as accepted, and they've got a family member that doesn't agree with, their food choices, whatever their food choice is, right? For all the reasons, because they just want to lose weight or they want to be fabulous, whatever it is. They don't want to have to disclose that.
Right. So you're on this journey to learn more about the restaurant experience, the guest experience. You're just collecting data at this point. You're learning about if I'm going to make this, how do I make it right?
Yes.
And you start by making, like when you build something, you're trying to solve problems. So you're trying to identify the problems.
Yeah. I was trying to identify them. Yeah. And so I go through using my consulting background, and it was fun. I would be out with friends, and then I would immediately start just asking questions. And then they would be like, she's working again, and it was awesome to just pull it in where people didn't really even know that I was asking for a reason. Then I got into, of course, I asked a lot of guests and patrons, what it was like for them. And I was surprised, and I still am surprised at how many people want to know.
Right. So
that don't have any issues. They just don't feel well with a certain thing.
So after doing all this research and getting an idea of what the pain points are and the solution you want to create, when did you actually start building Know My Menu?
Well, so then COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
So that changed things just a bit. So I started to design it. As I said, I had the database background, so I started to design all the data structure and what I would need from here and there and da-da-da in 2020. And then at the beginning, I think, of 2021 was when I started to go ahead and start putting developers on it to work on it and start to bring it to life. I did my pilot in 2023. So we've gone through a full year of working with some key restaurants, and it's doing well. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So today, if I go to a restaurant and Know My Menu is on the menu, what does that look like? Like paint the picture of like what would happen if I sat down. Like I sit down at the table, what next?
So when you first, it can be on their website. So, 90% of patrons, something like that, will check out a restaurant before they even go.
So on the website, is it just the Know My Menu logo?
On the website, just when you click on their menu, it brings up the Know My Menu menu.
Got it.
Yeah. And here's a really interesting thing that I like to bring to people's attention. A selective diner and a non-selective diner are going out. Who chooses the place?
The selective diner.
The selective diner, right?
The person that might die.
Exactly. The person that might die or just not feel great.
Right.
Just not feel great. And so what I have found is that what I really want to do is I want to give restaurants a tool so that selective diner chooses them. Mm. So there were plenty of restaurants that I didn't go to because I just like their menu, the way that it was presented. I'm like, it's just too much of a pain. Right now I can eat anything that I choose to. I don't have those, I don't have to worry so much unless, like I said, I just want to have a little bit more out of life. But it was such a pain to try to figure out like, okay, what is this and what is that? So that's what I want to do with Know My Menu is to take that pain point away and get restaurants the visibility for what they're already doing.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand the user experience right now.
So, okay, back to the user experience. The user can view it from the menu, from their website. If they go into the restaurant, what my restaurants are doing is they have the QR code on their menu.
Their hard paper menu.
Their hard paper menu, and it says scan to know more. Right? And it's really, scan to know more. See photos, see greater descriptions, because the real estate for a printed menu is limited. You can't really include a lot in the description.
Right.
And a little bit of backstory that I think is fun with this is my first boyfriend was a server. Why?
Because you can make good money as a young guy.
I loved the way he described the dishes. I just
Wait,
sat
that's
there.
why he was your boyfriend?
That's
That's what it did?
Yeah.
So it did it for you?
It did it for me. Yeah, I just remember him. It was an Italian restaurant, and he was describing, I don't know what it was. I just don't, the cheese and the sauce. And I was like, wow. And so that's what Know My Menu allows restaurants to do too. It doesn't have to be limited to just those keywords that they're trying to convey. They're trying to convey some of those ingredients. So use more description to sell the product.
Right. So you can
Use the
upsell.
photo.
You use the photo. You can add a little bit more context to
Yeah.
go deeper into the menu. But from the user experience from like the selective eater, right?
Yes.
There's also more options than just the photo and the description.
That's right. So now they're looking at the digital menu, and now we want to go ahead and personalize it. So they've scanned it, they're looking at it, and they're like, wait, I am pescatarian and I don't eat dairy. So they're in the app or they're on the website and they just click a button.
So they're looking at a menu item.
They're looking at they're going to be on their phone.
Yep.
And they're going to select, there's a personalize my menu.
Okay.
They click on that. It kind of comes up, their toggles. They would select their toggles. And then from there, it just filters, it personalizes the menu for them. So it's going to show them what they can eat.
Right. So it starts eliminating the things that include those ingredients.
Right. Because that was another pain point for me. I didn't want to see everything that I couldn't eat. Right. And people that might be on a diet, like 20% of Americans are on a diet at any point in time, right? If they don't want to see that delicious cheeseburger. Just let me see, I'm just eating this. I only want to see what I'm supposed to be eating, because I don't know about you, but I'll just be like squirrel. And then I'll just be like, okay.
I'm going to go get a salad. Ooh, that burger sounds delicious.
Exactly.
I'll get a salad tomorrow.
I know. And then they're frustrated and they're just like kind of not happy with their choices. So they use the toggles, and at that point they get their personal menu.
Okay.
And then this is where it gets really cool. So, say it's a salad, something simple with a salad, and it has dairy on it. So I said that it's a pescatarian with a dairy.
Right. So it's a salad that has cheese on it.
Right. Yes. And this person doesn't want to have cheese, and that salad could have add-ons for it. Right. They could have chicken, steak, or salmon as an add-on. So they're going to go ahead and look at that salad, but the solution, Know My Menu, will say the dairy is optional. Right? The cheese is optional, and then it'll give them like a big alert. You need to remove the cheese. And then any of those add-ons that don't fit their lifestyle choice, they're not shown.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't see steak or chicken.
Got it. So can you order straight from Know My Menu? Like, do you add that to your cart? Okay.
No. And that is a really important point. When I created Know My Menu, there are so many wonderful solutions out there. I'm not trying to do what other people do well.
When you say other solutions, you're talking about
other
Chow Now.
Yeah, other solutions, not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
so you're just trying to give the patron a tool, so when they are about to place their order with the server, that they know exactly how to order.
That's right. That's right.
Got it.
Yeah.
From the restaurant owner perspective, in terms of like actually rolling this out and launching this, what is the pushback that you get? What is the resistance that you get from the restaurant owner?
Their time. They're concerned about time to maintain it. To maintain it. So if they have changes to their menu.
So what would maintaining it look like?
So if they changed dishes frequently, then they
have to update the database.
They would have to update, their solution. So like I said, I was in tech and I designed systems for all that 25 years. So I designed Know My Menu. I designed the user interface, and I designed it in such a way that was user-friendly for the chef. So they can literally do it from their iPhone if they're rushing out. It's very easy to use. The people that actually use it love it because they can go ahead and they can see how valuable it is. But the initial thing is, I'm not really sure about
committing to that.
the commitment
Yeah.
to that, and they don't realize that the time that it'll save the servers and get more people coming in kind of offsets, and that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah. But is there a plan for the future to streamline that process? If things that you
Yes.
think you can do?
Oh,
Like
yes, definitely. More integration with POS systems. So I've talked to a couple already,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty excited about that. And recipe tools, where people keep their recipe cards, I think is a real big opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's huge. So like one of the things, like just through getting to know you and hearing your story and thinking about your product, and like immediately I was like, that is going to be such a pain in the ass. And you're like, why would you say that about my product? But from like a restaurant owner perspective or a chef perspective, like one more piece of technology to manage.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And like we're being bombarded. It's a real issue where there's just so much shit.
Well, yeah.
now.
Well, remember, I already went back and I said technology is a tool.
Yeah.
So that's in my DNA.
Right. Remember the days where you could just be a restaurant owner and like throw together a menu and just like cook it? And people
Right.
would show up and you would have a menu and people would come in and you would cook the food and then they
I
would order the
know.
food and then you'd clean up and you'd go home.
I know.
Now there's just so much, there's so many moving parts, and it can
Mm-hmm.
be so overwhelming. But back to how we started today's conversation is we can use technology to solve our problems, to enhance community,
That's
to
right.
enhance human existence. And I think there's integrations. If you could like integrate with like you were talking about the POS systems, like the Restaurant 365s and the Restaurant Systems Pro
right.
and the Mises of the
Mises,
world
yeah.
and the Margin Edges of the world, where the owner's already, or the chef is already going through with their recipe costing so they can really dial in
That's
and
right.
be as profitable as possible. If you're doing that process once, then you can integrate and push all that information
That's
to where
right.
it makes sense.
That's right.
So, like we're really moving in an interesting direction where like if we're knowledgeable as restaurant owners, we can kind of like write the rules and say, hey, like if you want to sell your product to me, then I want you to make it open AI so that you can integrate with all the other tools I have to use.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so the APIs that are available now, or the way that software is developed now, people
What is
are open.
API for all the restaurant people?
Application Programming Interface. So that's going to be
What the hell does that mean, Susan?
right. So that's going to be like a universal way to connect to another data source.
Yeah.
So think about like
The language.
The Mies. The Mies has a database, right?
Yep.
So it has all these. Think about like just a file system that has all of the data in it. A
Yep.
recipe card. You could even think of it as a physical recipe card. So the API we would either push or pull, depending on, right? So I would either go and grab the data, or they would push it to my system, and then I would get that data, put it into Know My Menu, in the structure that Know My Menu wants it, and then it would be available for the restaurants to then use it.
Got it. What fears or concerns or challenges do you see trying to execute that? What resistance, as somebody who knows the world of tech, and you probably have more experience dealing with other tech companies than you do restaurants, right?
Definitely. So from a tech perspective, I'm not very concerned
Do you think
about it.
other products would be open to that?
Yes. I mean, I was speaking with someone recently, and they were really excited because they said, wow, if we can make it easy for the restaurants to keep the digital menu updated, then they're going to go ahead and have a carrot to keep their recipe cards updated. Because I think they are even noticing that,
You can give them the tools. You can give the software company can give the restaurant the tools, but that doesn't mean that they're going to use the tools.
Correct. And a lot of times, I mean, I'll just say this from a tech perspective. I have seen this time and time again whenever I'm rolling something out. It can be overwhelming.
Right.
And a lot of times, a tech company will be like pushing a lot on the customer. And it really needs to be chunked, right? So go in, what's going to be my low-hanging fruit? Then go back in and say, okay, now I can digest a little bit more. Now I can take on a little bit more. But I don't recommend anybody saying, all right, give me the fire hose and just take all of it in. It's too hard. It's too hard for people to shift. And now you're talking about people shifting the use of technology when they have a high sense of community, right? So I think that dichotomy of existence is really difficult for people, right? You want to go ahead and you want us to be really into the tech, and then you want us to go out and serve people.
Right.
So that would be my recommendation for restaurants. And I did do that with Know My Menu. I kind of have like two flavors. So you can have it really detailed, or you can just have it flag for things if somebody didn't want to dive all in for that.
Got it. So why I get excited about Know My Menu the more I learn about it is, I think from my perspective, studying the industry, studying trends, like economic trends, we in our lifetime, my lifetime, the world we were in when I was born was the service industry. We were in the service economy, right? And then over the past 30, 40 years, we've kind of we transitioned into the experience economy, where we started to realize, hey, we're not providing a service as much as we're providing an experience, and that's what people are paying for. And we should think of our restaurant as an experience and charge for the experience, not just the cost of goods. Right.
I kind of agree with that, because I think I sit there and I wonder, I'm like, how do they make money?
Right. So with a tool like Know My Menu, you're making that user experience much better. You're providing tools to take the anxiety, the fear out of the time, the stress.
It takes to order. Yeah.
So you're providing an amazing service. And there's, like I said, there's more, and like you said, there's more and more people in the world, whether it's dietary or like whether it's
I call it
fabulousness.
Fabulousness.
Right?
They just want to feel good.
Or another big thing that's happening too with conscious capitalism is people just want to know where are you sourcing these ingredients?
Well, yes. And so that is another feature of Know My Menu, is to go ahead and bring transparency. So the three core values of Know My Menu are empowerment, transparency, and inclusivity. So the more that people know, they can be empowered to make choices for themselves. And inclusivity is about, like, there's no judgment, right? So I already told you, like, that's a mantra. There's no judgment on how somebody eats. So how do we bring in, farm to table, organic, where the salmon was caught? How can they do that in this little paper menu? So what Know My Menu is doing is, one, it's visible in the description, it's visible on the ingredient, and then it's also something that they can search.
Right. So in terms of back to this idea of going from the service economy to the experience economy, the prediction is we're heading into the transformation economy. So the experience economy is, I think it's all those things that we talked about, the actual user experience being out. But now it's also the experience of conscious capitalism, of what happens when you go out and you make a decision, a purchasing decision, how that makes you feel, the experience that is for you. So when you can be like, I'm going to get the flounder, like whatever. Oh, this was caught from the pier 5 miles away. Now I know why it's a little extra, but I'm happy to pay that because I'm supporting the fishermen that caught this. So, but how that ties into the transformation economy is that the transformation economy is people working. It's either on an individual level where people are trying to become better versions of themselves, but it's also this idea of, like Simon Sinek, start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's important to have a strong why, because that idea of, like, if you contribute to our restaurant, like, we're going to make an impact on our community for this reason. Right. So now there's like this communal transformation happening where people have a purpose, right? So
they have a voice too. So that was the other thing with Know My Menu is, so my degree, as I said, I loved computers. My degree was in international political economy. I didn't choose computers because only geeks did it. And that my degree was so much hipper, right?
Right.
but I believe that that we have choices as individuals, and that we don't have to wait for government to tell us what we can and cannot do. And so if I have a choice, or if I have a choice on what I'm going to eat, I want to go ahead and use that choice to send a message so that restaurant knows, okay, this is important to me. Right. And I'm willing, like you said, I'm willing to pay that extra money to go ahead and get into it and support the people around me.
But I guess it's really important. I think the thing that I really want to communicate is that if you are a restaurant owner and you go through all the effort to make conscious decisions.
Get credit for it.
Yeah,
get credit for it. That's it. I mean, I'm not trying to tell restaurants to change the way they're doing it, right? So, no, my menu can fit for any restaurant. I have, a bar, I have fine dining, I have all different kinds of restaurants, a tiki bar even. You don't have to change what you're doing. But get the credit. If you're doing something, get credit for it.
Yeah, and this is in my mind, this is a great tool to showcase your level of give a fuck. You can show the world.
His words, not mine.
Like if you're going through all the effort to make a change, to support your local community, to be a part of the transformation economy.
That's right.
Then how else are you going to stand out from your competitors? How else are people going to know that you're going through all these motions? I mean, there's other ways to communicate it, but if you can bake it into your number one marketing tool, your menu, then that is powerful.
That's right.
So that's why the more I learn about who you are, like you just came into my life, like you
lucky you.
Like we traveling around, and we became friends. I'm honestly I have trust issues. As somebody who hosts this podcast, there's a lot of people that want to be quote unquote my buddy and my pal, because I have this audience of decision makers. And if you can get access to my audience, so I always kind of create this layer, this bubble of when people reach out to me, I'm like, okay, I see you, but I'm not going to let you get in. I'm not going to let you get close. Right. And you never tried to pitch me or sell me on Know My Menu. Not until recently. You didn't even tell me.
You asked.
Yeah, we became friends, right?
Yeah, you asked. You're like, so how are you related to the restaurant
So the more I started learning from you, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I think that you're really onto something, and I'm excited for you. And I think that, I'm just excited. I think that this is the direction that the industry is headed. And you're using technology to make people's lives better. To serve humanity, right? So as we go into the future, what is your market for rolling this out? Or what is your strategy for rolling this out? How are you going to get this thing into more restaurants?
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
So that's what I'm focused on now. And so I've created this group, kind of like your Restaurant Unstoppable Network. So this unique group of 100 restaurants called the Know 100 group. And I do the work to go ahead and get them online, all the work, because we don't have those integrations just yet. They use it. They love it. It starts to spread that way. But more importantly, I get those 100 restaurants to work with me to give me feedback, right? So I want the product to evolve. I want to include feedback from the restaurants.
Yeah, it's your test group, basically.
It's my test.
Minimal viable product. Get it into the hands of people, and you just reiterate.
Yeah. I mean, so you don't have to give me your feedback, but I like to sit with the restaurants and say, okay, what else are your pain points? What didn't I get?
Right. How can we make this better?
How can we make this better?
1% better every day.
That's right. And then, part of the Know 100 is they get to work with me for the life of the relationship. And I wanted to make sure that regardless of where we go as a company, that relationships are important.
Yeah. Is that 100 restaurant spot filled?
No.
How many more slots do you have?
I've got about 50 more to go.
Maybe we can close that up in the next
that would be really fun. Because relationships are really important to me. So I don't like it the way that tech has evolved to where these companies just have a chat or an 800 number, and you spend all this time not able to get through.
Yeah, that's not making the user, the world a better place. It's making it easier for the business, but not for the end user who's like, I just want to talk to a person and get my answer.
Right,
so
because you don't even know what you don't know. You don't even know how to communicate that you have a tech issue.
You spend 2 minutes going through all the menus, listening to everything. I'm like, nope, none of these are my, like I need a person. So like, okay, a minute later, so now you're 3 minutes waiting.
That's right.
To talk to somebody, and you finally get through to somebody.
What happens to me is I'll be doing a chat and doing this, and then I'll be multitasking unsuccessfully and forget that I'm in a chat.
Oh, right.
And then by the time I do get there, they're like, okay, you're not there. And I was like, oh man, I got to start over again.
Yeah. But I think in terms of like also this idea of like getting it out there, I mean, is there like I said, you said that every restaurant can use this.
Every restaurant, yeah.
Yeah. But is there like a restaurant that you think could benefit the most from a tool like this?
I think the restaurants that we kind of talked about it that are really making those conscious decisions, I think they are really highlighted with the tool. The restaurants that have wonderful photography, because it really shows off that food nicely.
Do you think it makes more sense to target the consumer in terms of scale or target the restaurants in terms of scale?
So really good question. And I kind of struggled with what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg, the consumer or the restaurant. And what I decided to focus on was getting the restaurants on board, these first, 50 to 100. And as I'm doing that, I'm working on the patron side, the guest side. So the vision is that I have restaurants on board, because without restaurants, what are patrons going to look for? Right. Then they can search for the restaurant on our website, but then I'm also going to be creating an app for the patron. And so we talked a little bit about these toggles, right? That they can personalize the menu, but the app will actually have a solution for somebody to say, okay, I want to save this lifestyle as my personal lifestyle. I don't fit into the 9 FDA required allergens, but I just don't like capers. Right. So I'm going to create this personal. Or I'm paleo. Yeah. Something that I can't put every diet and every ingredient on, a digital menu that you want to have present well. So I put the popular 3 diets, vegan, vegetarian, and pescatarian. And then the 9 allergens are on there. Although I've kind of joked that I want to just put one that says meat, right? They can just remove everything else. But they'll have a custom lifestyle. And then they can go ahead and see what they can eat against the different menus. They can search for restaurants that are compatible with their lifestyle.
Right. We've had conversations, so it's hard for me to have a conversation with you acting like we've never had conversations before about this subject, right? But the things like looking at the mountain you have to climb ahead of you, like starting any big company it's going to be a mountain, right?
It's tough. It's really, really tough. There's a lot of fear. I mean, I guess from I was at a restaurant the other day, and I wanted to talk to him, and they just
restaurants are constantly being sold. Like they
and
don't
I was like, but wait a second, I'm not just a salesperson. I'm the founder. I'm here to help you. I want to make a difference for you.
You and everybody else.
I know.
But I think if you were to focus on, I think that the biggest opportunity for you is to focus on the consumer. I think because if
they're gonna push it.
Yeah, and I think looking at like Uber, right? How did Uber scale? They started in one market, right? Los Angeles, I believe. Right? Wasn't it Los Angeles and New York? But I would think
San Francisco.
Well, like a San Diego or like a Los Angeles or a Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever lifestyle is a big part of the community, where you can tap into these communities of like super health conscious individuals, or even digital communities of like food allergen, like people with celiacs or like whatever. If you can tap into those communities and say, hey, check this out. But if you could do it hyper geographically, and then have a market saturation of people that
was the plan, or that is the plan.
But if you get to the point where consumers are like, this is the bee's knees,
gotta
like like going to restaurants, do you have Know My Menu? And like,
what? You're not in the know?
Yeah, and then you start like you get proof of concept in a local, like a region, right?
Right.
And then you can use that success to show other markets like,
You got to do
wait
this.
until know my menu comes to you. So now if you're in like, I don't know, Iowa City, Iowa, you know, and like the word has gotten out about this app, Know My Menu, you can be like, you can have a competitive edge over your competition by
Right.
being an early adopter of this technology.
Well,
and
what I
attracting
found
that
out in
target
my
market.
research, so, you know, you and I are big road trippers.
Yep.
And I would, you know, on the road trips, I would kind of do some more of this consulting. And I was in Scotty's, Nebraska at this interesting little cafe, and the order taker was like a counter, right? So she was amazing, and she was answering all these questions. And I asked her, I said, wow, you were so accommodating to people. I'm really surprised. I wouldn't have expected it. And she said, we have to be for the tourists. And so here we have these remote locations, and they're still pulled in to what the tourists want in these bigger locations. So that's going to be a really nice evolution of the product.
Yeah. Yeah. But in my experience, restaurant owners don't do shit until they feel like they're missing out. Until there's
Aw,
FOMO.
Be an early adopter.
You know what I'm saying? They're
Be
like,
an
oh, if
early
I don't do
adopter.
this, then like I'm going to miss business.
So that's the No 100.
Yeah.
I'm sole funded, a sole founder. And so I'm going to tell you why I chose to do that, because I didn't want VC coming in and dictating the product. I wanted to keep it pure. I want to keep it about bringing the patron and the chef and the server all to the table, all around the table, to create a solution that helps everyone.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was going to change if I brought in, you know, capital to make
It's one of the things I think I could scale Restaurant Unstoppable easily if I went to like a, you know, like a Cisco or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I could be like the official podcast for like your brand.
Right.
But then when you do that, it becomes ulterior. Like, you know, it's like, okay, well, is my job to sell your
And where does
product?
the data? And where does the
Right.
data go? So you and I've had this conversation. Something that I'm concerned about with tech is, you know, Warren Buffett says it best. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah, you're paying for it in ways you're not even aware of.
That's right. And so, and we've all kind of seen it, right? We go and we're browsing a website, and then the next thing you know, you're getting all these ads for a similar product.
Right.
So I'm not doing that. So I want to be able to report off of the data to restaurants to say, hey, in this market, we're getting a lot of hits for this type of lifestyle. You know, go ahead and you might want to think about a different menu, a different menu item, because people really want this. But I don't want my patrons' data. I don't want the restaurant's data. I don't want it to be out and available for other people to kind of mine. But where I was going with the investors is that this No 100 Club, those are my investors, right? These early restaurants that are helping me create the product, they're my investors, and I want to go be true to them and keep the restaurant having the conversation, not, you know, VC. I didn't have to do this. That's the crazy part. I didn't have to do it. And sometimes I'm like, what was I thinking? So I chose to do it because I felt like there was this hole that people weren't seeing. And then when I got into it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know why they weren't seeing it, because it's a hard hole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's tough. And so I designed the tool, and now it's bringing in the restaurants to kind of build that tool. And like you said, get the consumer to also let the restaurants know this is what we want.
Right. Yeah. You know, what I would love to have in a feature, like for me personally, something
We'll
that's
call it
important
the
to
Eric
me-
feature.
Well, it's just like, is there a way like to put a filter on where it's just like, this is like purchase within 100 miles from the restaurant, you know, like if you're somebody where your value is buying local, and you
Yes.
want to filter out the menu based off of like,
Yes. I've
what
kind
would
of
that
got
even
that.
What
I've
would that
kind of,
look like?
you want my secrets?
Yeah.
You really want my
Like,
secrets?
how would you do that? Like, would it be how the restaurant owner like updates the information, where it would be like like it would be labeled or something? Like,
So it's funny. So in Know My Menu, I have this feature that allows restaurants to hide any ingredient, right?
yeah,
They hide the ingredients, but then they can still filter off the ingredients. So the secret sauce isn't exposed. And now you're asking me for my secret sauce.
Okay. Gotcha. I don't want to get too far. Is there anything we haven't discussed that you were hoping to discuss?
Oh, goodness. I think we covered a lot of ground. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, typically when I feature the tech companies, we don't do a full, 2 hours. I do want to take a little time to talk about, just how supportive you've been to me.
Oh.
As somebody who's been successful in life, because I don't own a restaurant. In many ways, I'm not a tech startup either. I don't have a software as a service.
Good job.
So I said that, right?
Software as a service. I like it.
Backstory, Susan was correcting me because there's a few times on the show I've said service as a software.
That's right.
So I made sure to get it right. But I am a startup, and I'm an entrepreneur. And when you're traveling constantly and you don't have like people to like offload on and or people who just know what you're going through, having you to be able to talk to about this poor lady, I offload on her, like share like what's going on. You've been giving me some really great advice.
Oh, thank you.
So, publicly, in terms of like what you've learned about Restaurant Unstoppable, what I've shared with you, where we're going, what is your public advice for me right now?
I can't believe the effort you put into it. It's just, I got to go, I guess, on record to say that. I can't believe the lifestyle, doing laundry, like, and the contortions you get to put it away.
Yeah,
I mean, like, you're like, I don't like doing laundry. And I'm like, I don't like doing laundry either. But then when I realized how you have to put the clothes away, no wonder you don't like putting laundry.
Yeah, I have to do Pilates every time. I'm gonna do a plank to like get my clothes in the closet.
I think that you started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have such a unique offering, which is why I, listened to Restaurant Unstoppable so much when I was developing the product, because you're real. It just felt like when I would listen to some of the other, podcasts, there was this inauthenticity about them. And so you and I have a love-hate relationship with that, right? Because sometimes you're a little too real for me.
I've been told.
A little too real. But I like that. And I think that you have this big heart. The challenge is that everything around us is moving at such a speed. So how do you stay true to your heart?
Right.
And not miss the opportunity? Right. And so that goes back to, it's how you show up.
Right.
And I think you are showing up. And we've had a lot of discussions about being consistent with your values. And I think that that's really important. And that is impressive. Working, being around you, you're really consistent with your values. And sometimes you'll have internal arguments over them. But at the end of the day, you go back to how you want to present yourself and Restaurant Unstoppable.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And just trying to figure out how to execute what I'm trying to do, take on a more journalistic approach, slow down. Slowing down has been a real challenge for me because I'm used to being on the road. Like if I'm not recording 6 interviews a week, I'm falling short. Or 8. I was doing 8 to 10 interviews a week before I lived full time on the road. And part of the thought process of living this lifestyle is so I can slow down, so I can really do honest work, show my work, and be present. So when you recommended The Power of Now, my poor listeners are like, oh, he's talking about this stupid book again. That's your fault. You put that on my
well,
radar.
And in all fairness, I listened to that book the first time, I think in 2010.
Yeah.
And when I listened to it, I was like, oh, really? I was like, oh, God.
It's a hard audio book. It's a really hard audio book.
It's a hard concept to really grasp because you first go into it and you're like, the power of now. Okay, I've got to like be still. And what, just really the carrot for enjoying the power of now is really taking in everything that's around us, and all we really have is the now.
Right.
So not worrying so much about the present or the future and the past, but being right here in the present. But what I've noticed is intellectually, when I calm my brain down and I enjoy walking the dog, or really enjoy walking the dog, or on road trips, really enjoy those forest hikes, and I'm taking everything in, that the work that I'm doing that does require the mental gymnastics comes really easy.
Yeah.
Right? Because my brain is now hungry for it, as opposed to kind of being beaten down.
Yeah.
So yeah, for anybody who wants to take on the power of now, just know that that's kind of the draw, that information will come to you faster. So
Yeah.
solutions.
Well,
solutions.
we spend so much energy because the brain is like, it's a thing that sucks up energy, right? Worrying about the future.
That's right.
Worrying about the past. Did I do the right thing? Am I
Again,
doing the right thing for the future?
the value judgments.
Right. And like just constantly being in your head about like, is this the right move? Whereas just trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust your values. And that's why those are there. So you have an instantaneous filter to put things through, make decisions, but just also just being present and recognizing like I'm literally living my dream right now. For the past 10 years, it's been my dream to be able to live on the road, to have freedom. I can go anywhere. I can talk to who I want.
That's
I'm
right.
not making millions of dollars, but I also have learned that you don't need millions of dollars to be happy. I have enough money to have life insurance, to fill the gas tank, to feed myself, to take a break if I need to. But most importantly, I have freedom of purpose.
I think that's the power.
Yeah, freedom of relationships, freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of purpose. You know, and I'm at this point right now where like just kind of helping like to realize that, you know, like just before The Power of Now, I was reading
Reading.
listening. I was listening to, what the heck is it called? Oh man, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the name of this.
Was it The Transformation?
No, it's just talking about it's just this idea of doing one thing. No, like in like your 80-20 and like staying in your lane and delegating as much. Why can't I think of the name of this book? It's killing me. My phone's also away from us right now. I'd look at the title, but it was just this idea of just really focusing on what you're meant to do. 80-20 rule, delegating everything else. 10x is easier than 2x was the book.
Oh, okay.
Now I lost my
I've
train of
not
thought.
read it.
Anyway,
Listen.
But that book, like listening to that book, and they dove into this, like the power of freedom, right? So when I listened to that book and I recognized that I really do value freedom, freedom to do the right thing.
Again,
you know?
value judgment.
Yeah. What do you mean by that when you're saying value
So
judgment?
when I talk about value judgment, you know, when you say the right thing, right or wrong, it's like productive thing,
Oh, right.
right? So we get so into this black and white existence.
That's
And,
another.
and that's difficult for us because it doesn't allow us like some freedom to really interpret it for what it is. And so a productive choice.
Right. And I think the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything, right? So what is right? What is wrong?
Right.
Like in this moment, like you might make a quick value or a quick, judgment of what's right and wrong. But like,
You might say, okay, I'm assessing this situation and it's consistent with my values.
right. I think another challenge I've had over the years is what's right for you might not be right for somebody else.
That's right.
And like one of the reasons why I don't want to be a consultant or a coach is because I don't want to put my filter onto somebody else, because you know you way better than I know you. And I can't just like give you this cookie cutter solution, because that
I think that
solution
that's-
might not work for you.
Well, in a lot of ways, that's kind of what the cookie cutter part is. What you get when you're working with consultants is they kind of just have this formula and okay, but it's getting to know a person and really understanding them and their values. And I don't really their strengths.
Unique opportunities in their market.
That's right.
You know, what their vision is. Like there's so many variables that there are no two restaurants that are exactly the same. Even a restaurant that is the second location of a existing brand is going to be different in a different
That's right.
market.
That's right.
You know, so it's just such a complicated beast that I don't have the mental bandwidth to solve everybody's problems. I just want to go be a student.
Just provide them tools.
Right.
Right. You're bringing them tools. So your podcasts are tools for people to go ahead and dig a little bit deeper and to use that community and find a like-minded restaurateur.
I think really what it's tools, because we're getting testimonials. Like here are the
Mm-hmm.
resources that people are willing to go on a public platform and say, I believe in this tool, but it's also perspective. And I think that's where I talk to people who are like just doing pop-ups. But guess what? Like if you're starting a restaurant today, that's not how they did it 20 years ago. So does it make sense to go talk to Susan Spicer, you know, who's like
Right.
this like such
New
a
Orleans?
New Orleans. See, exactly. You know who she
I
is.
heard her on
right?
your show.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
But like her journey is the path that you would
different.
have taken 20 years ago isn't the same path you should take today. There's new tools and technologies and
That's right.
resources to help you start smaller, right?
But the thing is, I guess for anybody listening that's going to be doing a restaurant, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's, you know, like a software solution or a podcast, being really true to what you're doing. And this goes for life as well. So, you know, you were talking about when I had the chronic illness and I'm going through a divorce and I've got like babies, and people will say like, how did you get through it? I'm like, I had my purpose. I knew what I wanted my life to look like. It just took it like I had to, I didn't plan for that, but I got to go ahead and still keep on that same vision. And that's what it's like, I would imagine, for restaurants that are dealing with, especially if it's a first time restaurant, right? You're like, I like to cook and I want to go ahead and cook and I want to bring people. And then you've got to deal with all of the business entity. You've got to deal with the employment, and you've got to deal with I can't believe all of the stuff you have to do just to go ahead and create this space
Right.
to bring people
It's a
to
lot.
eat. It's a lot, especially in California.
Oh my God, make it so hard.
It's so hard. But keeping that vision and making sure that you're not only true to the vision that you're creating for the experience for your guests, but also why are you doing it? Why are you doing it?
Right.
Right? Is it because you really like to cook? Is it because you want to create this place where everybody can come and have that sense of community? Or you like taxes? I mean, I don't really, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
place a value judgment on it, right? Like you just do you.
Yeah.
But if you're true and you're asking yourself, is it still filling that need? That's where you get like that joy. And that's another thing in the Power of Now that he kind of talks about is, you know, just try to do everything with joy or enthusiasm. And then if you can't, just accept it. That's where taxes fall for me, is I just accept that I have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
But development, technology, that's joyful. Working with restaurants is joyful. Seeing that aha moment when the restaurants go, this is amazing. All the restaurants that I've talked to, this is amazing.
Yeah. But you know, where you've really helped me, and I want to make this clear, is that I get very angry at the world sometimes.
Yes.
Whenever I see injustice, whenever I'm made to do something that to your point, like if it's something that you have to do, you don't have the option, just do it. Right. Like that
Acceptance.
Acceptance. It's hard for me to accept certain things because when I see injustice and I'm being told I have to do something that I don't think I should have to do. Taxes, you have to do, right? You have to do your taxes because we need the security
That's right.
of the government. We need that security.
Right.
It's our obligation. We have to do our taxes, but at least that's only once a year. You know, like social media, like
Oh yes, I
you
thought you
know,
were alluding to something.
like things
Yeah.
like that's just an example of like when I make my life about being curious and learning and getting perspective, and you start to learn, it's hard to unknow certain things. You know, like to your point, where we're talking about data and big tech.
yeah.
You know, and it's just like I don't want to support these platforms. I don't want to support Meta. You
Right.
know, I don't like that these companies have so much power. Like I think something like between YouTube, Amazon, Meta. What's the other big company that's out there?
Apple.
And there's maybe one more. Like 5 companies make up like 1/5 of the gross GDP, or what is it? Gross
Domestic product.
Yeah, for the entire country. 5 companies. 5
Microsoft.
companies.
You must be thinking of Microsoft.
Microsoft is the other one.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of scary?
It is really scary, especially when you and I chose not to go into my political training,
Right.
for a reason, so I don't want to get,
So when you have these
into
giant
but
companies
yeah.
that have that much influence, you think about what these companies have. Like,
especially when people are not making a conscious decision about, let's just use the tech that they have in their life.
but we don't. It's so new.
No,
we don't,
well, it's not. Well, okay, so I've been doing this. It doesn't really feel that new to me.
But even the big relative to you in your life, it's not new. Relative to humanity.
To humanity, it is new. And just the lack of consciousness when it comes to tech is the part that I have a problem with. And I see this. I have a 14 and a 16-year-old. And I get concerned at just, the blind.
But that's part of the game.
It's part of the game.
They don't want you to be conscious.
That's right.
Like, that's the whole game.
Right.
They're trying to persuade you, and they're using the data that they're getting on you to help others persuade you.
Right.
And when you're being told that, that you have to, when every business in the world has to do something to survive, i.e. be active on social media, this is the only way to market yourself. And if that becomes,
or know my menu,
or if that becomes true, right? If that becomes
Right.
true, and 5 companies control all of that.
no, you're not giving me credit.
What do you
That's
mean?
part of my vision.
Oh.
So Know My Menu will be a platform that I intend to make it pure. So the restaurants that are on there, I envision that this is the go-to place for people who want to go ahead and find what
Right.
they want to eat. The menu's on there, full transparency. They can go ahead and see what's on it. They can search. They're no longer limited by, the Yelps or, the Google, which their search is limited because they don't actually have the real data.
Right.
So while it's a little bit of work to put in the data that I'm asking, right? Once the data's in, it becomes searchable and available to the consumer so that they're not stuck looking at social media
Right.
to go ahead and get that information. And I don't really know how, I like social media to find out about restaurants, for Know My Menu. But as a consumer, it's really hard to use social media to really know the restaurant because you just get this.
You're also getting what they want you to think the
That's
restaurant
right.
is.
And then what I kind of have a problem with too is, I would like to know, I'm hands-on with my business. It's all me. I'm leading the development stuff. I'm doing the testing. It's very important for me loading the data, meeting with the restaurants. I want to be immersed. Is it easy? No, it's not always easy with time and stuff, but it's important to me because that was a value that I placed in it. But when the social media manager is the one kind of dictating that voice, and then now AI is the one creating the posts, that's where I kind of wonder, what is it real? Is this really a representation of the restaurant?
Yeah. And if everybody is getting to the point where they're automating social media, then do we really like doing it? Is it really even social media anymore?
I mean, we don't have to be perfect, right? Exactly. It's just,
So it's just for me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I see this stuff. And when to come full circle, it's hard for me to get out of my head sometimes, especially because I'm alone. Right. So all I have is myself.
you're even alone when you're here, which is crazy. I got to say, you're like a great guest.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're just like this great guest. You just,
Go my little hobbit
you
hole.
roll up, you go in your hole. I'm like, make yourself at home, enjoy. But yeah, you just kind of stay put. I had to,
Well, part
never
of
know when you're
the
here.
thought process of being on the road is my theory in studying habit is that I struggled before because I'd go someplace, I'd be away for a week, and I'd come back, and it was really hard to get into a routine and a habit because I was constantly being pulled out of my environment. And environment really influences habit. Mise en place, having things in place. You don't have to think about where did I put that.
Right.
It's right here.
So you're
now-
talking about traveling by air. When
when you're
meeting with
constantly
people, right?
in a new Airbnb, a new hotel, and you're just like blah, you spend so much money just trying to figure out which way's up.
Right.
Money, time, energy is what I meant to say.
And
So-
money. You
and
spend a
money.
lot of money.
Yeah. So by having the camper, I can control my immediate surrounding. So I can
And it
wake
feels
up.
good. Yeah.
I can wake up. I can make my coffee. I can open my computer. I don't have to set up an office space everywhere
Right.
I go. I have a spot where I put my
And it's
cameras.
nurturing. It's
Yeah.
nurturing. So people ask me, I've done all 48 states and heading to Alaska in August. People ask me all the time, well, did you stay at a hotel? No, why would I? I like my trailer.
Yeah.
I like my space. And I think there is something to be said about that.
But you just save. You don't have to think. You just do. You have when you can control your immediate environment, it makes just doing so much easier because you don't have to put all that energy into Where did I put that? Did I bring that? Did I forget that? My whole life
Did I
is with
leave
me.
it?
Yeah.
Did I leave it at the hotel?
Exactly.
Yeah. The only
So-
challenge is when you don't have your rig with you and you do have to travel.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, great. Now I can't take all my shite with
I
me.
know you do forget things, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that beyond. I mean, I'm really grateful for you for beyond just giving me a place to stay. You've hosted me for over a month in California. You've literally made me feel so welcome.
Aw.
I can't do what I do without people like you who support the mission. And you're supporting me not just physically by letting me be here, but you're also supporting me emotionally. You're letting me. You've been a great friend. So I just want to say thank you for that. And you've been a great
think that's
mentor.
trust, huh?
Yeah, and you've been a great mentor, and you've really helped me cope with just by being able to offload on you and to have you have this life experience, being an entrepreneur, knowing what I'm going through, and it really just helping me deal with my own emotions. I just want to say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure to get to know you. Like I said, I love having, I'm going to be sad when you leave.
Hey, well, I'll be back
I'm
in 2
going to be
years.
so sad.
I have my spot in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
So let's start to wrap this thing up. Unless there's anything else you want to get up before we start to wrap it up.
You had asked me about a quick story.
Yeah.
And one of the stories I didn't share with you was relating to the chef. So Know My Menu also allows me to do like a compliance report for the chefs. And I can let them know what are they using that might be low-hanging fruit to swap out that might not trigger, or it wouldn't trigger the filters. So I had a chef in Utah. He was using a soy spray-on for his grill. And I said, Chef, if you change this to something else, it's not soy. Soy is an allergen. You wouldn't have to be inconvenienced by it when you're cooking. He was like, oh, it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. I did the research. I showed him, an alternative source. He made that change.
Wow.
And he was like, thank you, Susan. I had no idea. So that's the other benefit for chefs. They don't have to keep up with all of the things that might bother a guest. They don't have to dig into those ingredients when somebody comes in and says, I want to eat this, but does it have X in it?
Right.
And then they're kind of, they have to stop, they have to go. If it has a package, they have to look through the package to see
Right.
what's in it, and it's really inconvenient. So it's really that trade-off between, do you front load it when everybody's there and you know what I mean? And you've got this intention to load the system, or are you inconvenienced when the patron asks you at a later date? So I didn't get to include that.
Well, thank you for getting that out.
Yeah, I just think it's really important.
It
I mean,
is.
I'm really proud of, I'm looking forward to your audience's feedback, because I've spent a lot of time making sure that this product was consistent with my values of enjoying life and bringing more life to the table, bringing patrons and restaurants together, and just getting more people to eat, for
Yeah.
goodness sake.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see how you grow. I'm ready and willing to introduce you to the other companies and tech that I think will help you get there. And just creating awareness and letting restaurants know that this is, I think, a really cool solution. And I think
Thank
I
you.
honestly think it's the future. If you look at where we're going in terms of like moving into the transformation economy and giving access to these tools, and people care about what they're putting in their bodies. They're transforming themselves through food, and to give them a tool to do that easier, like that's a smart move in my opinion.
Thank you.
Like that's definitely where we're going.
Thank you.
So what is one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that makes you truly uncommon and unstoppable?
That commitment
Commitment to what?
to the commitment to the vision and commitment to those values. So as I've been developing this, I'm very clear on why I'm doing it. And I have discussions with my development team. I'm resilient regardless of what comes at me from a technical perspective, or even the restaurants. I think like I will figure this out. You asked me, and I will figure it out, so that when I'm walking into a restaurant, they're like, that's Susan. Of course I want to talk to her. I respect the restaurant, but I will figure out how to really connect with them. What is that medium by which to communicate with the restaurant? So I would say, yeah, that I have amazing resilience. to just keep going. Like I said, once I got on this road, I just can't see myself stopping until I can,
You're unstoppable.
I'm unstoppable.
What is so the mission is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. Who are you today? How have you personally transformed as a professional to give this, like, I think if we're going to transform the world, we transform one person at a time. So give us an example of your personal transformation.
Oh gosh, through this process, it's really to look fear, right, like head on. Frank Herbert says, fear is the mind killer. And it really is. You go and you do a restaurant, you do a podcast, you do a tech startup, you better own your fear and look at it. I mean, there were days that I would just be like, how am I going to do this? There was just so much uncertainty. And I had to just look and go, okay, this is what the issue is. This is how I'm going to go ahead and conquer it. And I'm going to own it. And that fear is going to be what drives me. And so that's, yeah.
So I'm happy you're talking about this. So I interviewed Michael Ungaro, who is the co-owner of San Pedro Fish Market in San Diego, and he referred to me Ron Macklin, and Ron Macklin gave him tools to help his team communicate that they compounded on EOS. They use behind EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, from Traction, the book Traction. And what he identifies and what he talks about in his book, and I'm actually going to be listening to this book real soon as I'm interviewing him when I'm in Kansas City on my way back home.
Nice.
But he talks about everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid. So when you understand that most people are coming from a place of fear, it helps that. I think I haven't really dove into the book much, but it's like this kind of paradigm shift like once you understand people are just afraid, it helps you approach that situation better.
That sounds interesting. I know, like I said, looking at the fear for me has been empowering. We talked about the value judgment. If I placed a value judgment on being sick and the divorce as bad things to have happened to me, I would keep holding on to that. That was just a point in life.
Right.
I took being sick and I turned it into something positive with Know My Menu.
Right. And I think that's a lot of like the idea, like the failing forward. If you look at every failure as like a defining moment of who you are, and you just stew on it, what can I learn from this? How can I learn from this experience so the next time when I do
Sometimes it's really hard to do that though, right? Like you're in the midst of it and you're like, and you're just mad
but
that,
even if
it didn't turn out well.
It's already in the past.
Yes,
There's already
exactly.
something you can't do about it.
But I would say that in that moment, I don't want to give this impression like that I'm invincible, right? Like that things that happen don't hurt. They do hurt. But what I try not to do is give them more power over me. So in that moment, it might be frustrating, but then I work through it. And then what happens is I shorten that time, that frustrating time, to less and less. And then I can work through it faster.
Yeah. Okay. The last question.
Oh gosh.
If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow.
Oh, whoa.
All the memories of you, your work, your businesses would be lost without you. Know My Menu's gone, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind. If you could leave 3 pieces of wisdom behind for your legacy and for the good of humanity, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Well, I think I've already spoken to them, right?
Echo it.
So it would really be to live.
1.
Live your life. Live a full life. I would also say show up.
2.
Right? So it is about live the best version of you when you're showing up. And then 3, watch those value judgments.
This has been a lot of fun, Susan. Thank you so much. If we are piqued, if our interest is piqued to learn more about Know My Menu, what's the call to action?
Oh, so knowmymenu.com or on Instagram at knowmymenu, or you can email me. I have a personal email address for everybody on Restaurant Unstoppable. It's run@knowmymenu.com, and you can reach me directly through that, or you can reach me at susan.abbott@knowmymenu.com.
So if somebody wants to make sure that it was this podcast that made them aware of Know My Menu, it would be RUN for Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
That's right.
At knowmymenu.com.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And who do you respect and admire in your research, going across the country trying to find these restaurants that would be perfect for Know My Menu? Who do you think's doing it right? Who do you think I need to make an example of?
I really liked working with John Platt in Midway, Utah. And I think you're going out that way.
Yep.
He has a restaurant called Midway Mercantile. It has a great story of taking this mercantile and then refurbishing it. He has a lot of the local foods, and he brings that up on his Instagram page. And he's just he was really great to work with, and beautiful, beautiful menu with a lot of choices. And like I said, he's the one that made changes and embraced the comment about the soy.
I love it. So. Awesome. It was John
Platt.
John, look out. Yeah. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And I just thank you again for sharing your story, for the work you're doing to empower restaurants and the consumer, and the work you're doing to deal with me and empower what I'm doing here at Restaurant Unstoppable. I'm a work in progress.
My pleasure.
This is where I say, Susan, there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.